Guten Morning. Um, how are you all doing? You doing okay? This is from the Big Island. What an accelerator this place is. There was some big ships, or a lot of ships, that came over yesterday. Um, I don't know exactly what time they came in because I don't keep track of that stuff. I don't keep track of time. Whatever's supposed to happen will happen, and then I'll become aware of it. When I'm supposed to become aware of it. For the reasons that we become aware of it when you're a fire chief. Otherwise, what's known as the lead engine. And what's really funny about how firefighting terminology that they were changing over time from the time I came in, because believe it or not, these are all codes. I put a little post up this morning because I love the lady from Africa called Wake Up Africa, and she was talking about how now in Nigeria they're going back to speaking traditional language, which means the vibrational way in which you produce sound out of your voice box is naturally matched to the spiritual knowledge that represents the language of DNA of your particular original operating system based on that branch, that race. Okay. And naturally, it's not natural, but when you're dealing with a state of consciousness that has fallen and it becomes an inverter, okay, which means it's not running on pure energy. I had a beautiful conversation with a gentleman last night who remembered me where we had met each other over on the east side of the island in a place called Pahoa, near Kalapana. And he gets, he mentioned me. He said one word. He said, "My son's got a pure heart." That's pure energy. That's the soul and the essence of a spirit that is living through their heart. Not this. Because they can hack this. But they can't hack that soul, and they can't clone a spirit. Okay? So your shield is your spirit, which is in the light, which is the power of the fire through the soul, and your vortex, which is your heart. So naturally, as he acknowledged last night, they go after to break your spirit, which is to break your heart. Split it in half. Minus/plus. Plus side, which is the pure blood, is pure energy. That's the purest of light, which is the purest of love. That's why it's a pure heart, because it's not contaminated. That means that the realms that we create, the worlds that we create out of the purest energy, which is the purest love, are the realms we live in, because those are the realms we create. That's why as a little kid, check off every box. Why do you think, for example, and you can enumerate this if you love to do the math on a log scale distribution table in a water column, because we're mostly water for obvious reasons. Got to cool the engine down, right? It's running all the data, running all the visual holographic data. Chips, right? Membrane, memory and a chip. Okay. I'm a mated chip. Yeah, that's called cold fusion, hot fission. A single pole is one pole. Yep. Monatomic gold, female gold. Burn it off, baby. We're getting rid of this. Right? That's how it works. Because you're aware of anything that is less than what the purest of energy is, which is the purest of fire that is cleansing it, is not who we are. That's who they are. See? That's what launched the war in heaven. You don't go around downgrading the universe. Okay? Because you're an inverter. So that means they need a source of energy. And where do they get it? Ask the Anunnaki. Capturing souls. That is a major crime against the law of one. That's a crime against every soul that ever came into creation. So how do we prevent that in the future from ever happening again, so that we don't run a rerun? Which is sort of like when I said before, I don't want to have to come out and bring my fire engine back out to put a fire out. Remember that in Monterey County, that day that I went out there with that fire captain when I was a young firefighter? And he said, listen, I'm going to let you decide whether or not we're ready to leave this fire. Because we don't want to have to come back here, do we? And replay this. Oh, replay it. Yeah, because we've already experienced this once. We don't want to replay this again, do we? Because we didn't do it right the first time. Now we're going to do it differently. Rose was right about that. So in this particular case, what we're talking about here is doing it right the first time, so we don't have to come back and fix it, because we didn't do it right the first time. So this is one of the reasons why when I was a child growing up and I was looking at everything that they were building and putting together, you could realize it was all done on purpose, which basically means that they make shit that's crap. Okay, which means it's built in. The design is inverted. The inverted mind is built into the inverted things that they produce and generate out of their factories through their corporate military stuff, because you already know that their stuff is going to break down at some point in time, because they don't know what they're doing. So they spend all this time and energy in all their factories and all their places, putting all this stuff together, which is to deconstruct, to reconstruct what they in their mind believe is how they do that, and this is the right way to do that. So you see the difference between a converter running on pure energy and a mind that is inverted, that isn't. What it does with its energy, which is using our energy of the things that we create, they thus got to reassemble to try and put it back the way that we built it. Because they're not there yet. It wasn't created out of what love is. So now you're going to experience something that breaks down and degrades, which is entropy, as a result of what their minds use their energy for, which means it has a limited shelf life. So their machinery is limited shelf life, because they don't know how to make things last out of what love is that goes on forever. Gifting electrons. That's the truth of it. So you can imagine how it was being a small child and looking through my father's aeronautical engineering, who at one time was working for Grumman Aircraft, right? And then he went into working with all the other little defense contractors like Morton Thiokol, Reaction Motors, Raytheon, all them folks, right? X Projects, Edwards Air Force Base, all the stuff that we know that's going on this planet, right? Everything down below, right? As above, so below. You know, why their vehicles, for example, and this was coming out years and years and years and years and years ago. It's not like they couldn't make an automobile, okay, that runs on free energy. Certainly they could, but that's not how their mind thinks, because how are they going to make any money off your energy, which is your mind's energy, if you're not slaving away in order to keep the hamster wheel running so they can acquire more of what you are, because they're not what we are. They're inverters. That's right. That's right. So what that means is those that are the converters that are running on the purest energy are going to burn off all the inverters because they're not learning fast enough. Because the universe of consciousness is choosing to move on. So that everybody that is in that universe is experiencing what we are, which is what love is, that goes on forever, gifting electrons. That's why they use technology, integration. And that's why they experience time-space. That's right. It's exactly right. Because they have to use technology in order to perpetuate what they become aware of through that technology. By playing hop, skip, and jump. So I thought it was funny when I think of the numbers and the letter arrangements when I grew up being a firefighter, how this was like, what we're doing is you can easily see, because you're running on pure energy, how their minds work to put things together in a very linear way, in a binary way. So, for example, in 1970, they had what was called the 10 code, which is a communications code, the mic, the radio mic, right? So the 10 code, which is 1 and 0, right? 10 code. So back in the day, if you were returning from station, which means you were going to return back to the station, your fire station, okay? They had, for example, 10-7 meant you're out of service. 10-7, you're out of service. 10-8, 1 and 8, that's 9, you're in service. In service, out of service. See? But they don't put the negative numbers in these. They don't say -10, -8, in service. Oh, we're going to use our energy to do something on behalf of service to the community. What we're really doing is going backwards. So we keep replaying the same thing over and over again, which is why we keep putting their fires out. Even though we're the fire. So this is how everything becomes ass backwards. It's all ass backwards. That's the hamster wheel that's running in reverse, and you're trying to play catch up to those that are running on pure energy, which are the purebloods. So the spin cycle's different. You know, spin cycle, right? Either in a clothes dryer or a washing machine. Yeah, Waterworld's spin cycle. So these are the crimes that these are the major crimes that they commit against any race. When you know this as a small child, you can imagine that you're just one being. I'm just a little boy. Look at what they're doing. So we were barking dogs, which is barking crystals. Crystal consciousness, right? Barking sands, you know, like a crystal receiver and a transmitter on any beach. You know, receiving sunlight, energy. So when you're on the sand is letting you know what's happening with the sun. So anyway, this is a yeah, before I sort of cut loose on this, this is sort of historical, which would be actually going in time, but this is just for the purposes of how these numbers work with these folks. Okay? Because you have, they were trying to, it's not like an integration, but in a way it's sort of like an integration if you want to think of it as the singularity of artificial intelligence. Okay? Where all the neurons are connected to each other by virtue of the way in which these codings work as an integrated system with an artificial intelligence without you knowing the difference, how they're doing it at the time in which they are doing it. So if you take the 10 codes from an historical map, if you mapped it like the way the AI maps things, quad functions, right? 4. So if you go back and take a look at the 10 code, they completely revamped it. So for example, in Wildland Fire, they had what was known as a sector. Sector. Torsion field. It was known as a sector boss. Boss. Okay, B-O-S-S. The OSS. Remember who the OSS was? What was his name? I think his name was Robinson. Not Smokey Robinson. Wild Bill Dolan. Wild Bill, they called him Wild Bill, like Wild Bill Hickok. Right? Wild Bill. Right? Deadwood. Deadwood. It's coded everywhere that you're in a Death Star, right? It's not a living star, okay? In the sense that you're experiencing living, pure love energy everywhere that you go, which is what our worlds are. Okay, so everything from the time I was a child that was coming through their TV sets, their magazines, their publications, was all about model us, model us, model us, model what we do, model what we do, model what we do. We're inverted. Be inverted. That's right. Now you become the copycat and the mimickers of being inverted. Now all the inverted minds are now feeding off the purebloods that are here. So the purebloods, in order to not collapse the entire planetary system into a Death Star, okay, upon which they use it against our living stars, right, was for the purebloods that are here to maintain the speed of the core vibration of our blast furnace, which is the pure energy of which we're connected to the one, to know the other. That isn't the law of one, which is what love is. Okay? So now you can see how this is working, how the bank accounts are being drained from the ones that have the biggest bank accounts. So this is how, when you think about it from the perspective of Meredith Quinn, he put it right out there. They're cannibals. Well, what is a cannibal? It's vampiric. So when you know that light kicks out electrons, what are they feeding on? Us. So anybody within that corporate military system, on planet and off planet, that represents being inverted instead of givers of energy, which is what love is, to be in service to do that. So the real internet service providers are who we are, that built it. Okay? We built it. They're not builders. They don't construct worlds out of what love is. We do. So they take what we create before they do. So they get the hand-me-downs. That's how it works. Because we came first. That's the one. That's why with the numbers game, go into any Napa Auto Parts, Riley Auto Parts, any AutoZone, any parts store, right? And you'll begin to realize they make more money off parts because shit breaks down than they do the stuff that they sell that sits on lots and not being used. All right? Think about it. How many lots, how many dealerships on this planet do you think there are vehicles that aren't being used by anybody because they don't have the money? And then think about all the energy that was used to produce it, in which they're sitting there not being used. That's a complete waste of energy, isn't it? That's what inverters do. Which means they don't have any love to give you. They don't have any energy to give you. Everything that they do is based on getting energy off of us. And through all the other characters through which it comes, which is everybody working in a factory at every automotive dealership, including every automotive factory, whether it's General Motors, whether it's Lamborghini, whether it's Fiat or Ferrari. They're all vampiric. That's right. They have no interest in giving you or selling you anything that doesn't at some point in time break down. Ask anybody that owns a Ferrari. What it costs to have that machine tuned up. There was a time that I became aware of this, for example, where somebody in Saudi Arabia was driving around. I believe it was either in a Ferrari or Lamborghini, probably something that cost $240,000. Okay, so that's the form of transportation of consciousness that's being used by that entity. And then when he ran out of gas, okay, instead of finding a way to get some gas into that vehicle to drive it back because that vehicle has value, he left it there to go drive another one. And yet you have people in Nigeria living on less than $2 a day. Something is definitely fucked up with that picture. Okay. Which means it's all about me. And it's not about all the others. That's how you know the difference between the one and the other. That's the truth of it. So at some point you have to say, we got to end this stuff. We got to end this movie. This is a horror movie. That's right. It's a horror movie because that's what they present. That's who they are. Those are the worlds they live in. They're death cult. Spiritual death. That's what it means to be fallen. It's a fallen spiritual system. So a lot of work went into this because of the unnatural way in which it presents itself. So when you come onto a spiritual battle, it is important to know the difference between who you are and who they are, which isn't who we are. So the branch director they had above a sector boss was converted, but it became inverted using different letters, arrangements, and numbers, which are energy, by calling what used to be a sector boss a branch director. Oh, you're the branch director. So their 10 code and the whole system upon which all the firefighting and all the law enforcement personnel got militarized into full spectrum dominance with Skynet. Using what is known as the Uniform Commercial Code, which through all of the services through every community across America became known as the Incident Command System, which means the military is running everything. The corporate military is running everything. All their stores, all their fire departments, all the police departments, all the military, everything comes under one command, function, and that's an AI. Okay? That's why every time, all their hospitals, all their clinics, all their pharmacies, all their stores like Walgreens and all the rest of that, yeah, it's all a racketeering. They're all gangsters, and and everybody that works in all these systems, including all their banks, all their stores, all their gas stations, everything that you see that they constructed on this planet is all not lawful. Violates the law of one. Every last bit of it. Those are empires run by emperors. That's right. So anyway, what I experienced yesterday and what I'm experiencing this morning, and I will simply share this with you, there are certain patterns energetically, particularly on this island. And I know that there were a lot of ships came in here because whenever there's a lot of radiation, right, I got it cleared out of my throat chakra. It took me the better part of the night and this morning. But when I usually get up in the morning, my energy's fine, and so usually by 8 or 9 o'clock I'm up and around. I don't go back to sleep. Okay, but this morning, and because I had some dreams last night that were very powerful dreams, when I got up this morning, I got up like I normally do, but then I went back to sleep, and I realized, wow, I'm processing a lot. Okay, so when you become aware of what Yellow Rose put up, okay, about chips and all that, becoming aware of what we're doing up there, how I'm experiencing it down here, I went back to sleep. Now, I normally never do that. Okay, so I realized that's a change. That's like a marker. Okay, what's going on energetically, what you're processing, and a result of the changes that are taking place. So I become aware of it because I'm aware of the changes that I'm experiencing as a result thereof. That's a good sign. Okay. That is a very powerful sign from what I become aware of because of what I'm experiencing as a result of that. That's feedback, right? Of what others are doing on our behalf to end this nightmare once and for all. So anyway, I thought I'd share that because this is the largest shield volcano. That's why they're here. Anyway, have a beautiful day. I love you all. Take care of yourselves. We did it, Mama.